everything came out of my body, and I was pure consciousness, which is the omnipresent part of our being, where we can just go anywhere and do anything. And so I travelled up through the dimensions of the universe, and I went through all the different levels, and then I came back. You will know everything that I share with you. It's just you've forgotten it. So all I'm doing is providing a trigger here for you to remember, because all of this knowledge is inside of you. Everybody's got it. We've just forgotten it. But now we're at the time in the cycle where it's time for us to remember who we truly are deep down inside, and why we came here, and where we all come from, and where we're all headed.
What is truth? I'll give you a definition of truth. It's the way things are. It's not some literary dogma written in a religious book. Truth, universal truth, is just the way things are. And people say, well, all truth is relative. Well, it's not. Little truths are relative. But there are what we call big truths or universal truths. So the fact that I'm here incarnated on Earth with you right now is the same for you, it's the same for me, it's the same for everybody on this planet. I have my concepts, understandings and knowledge about it, and that is all based on having travelled up through the dimensions of the universe and having interacted and gone out of this reality on many, many occasions and seeing things from the outside looking back in. So that's where I get my knowledge, experiences of knowledge and understanding and wisdom about what's actually happening here. I also have conversations with this planet. This planet is a living, breathing, thinking being. I explain to you who she is. She is a manifestation of the feminine aspect of this universe manifesting herself as a planet. So it's an aspect of the Divine Mother. The whole point of the true ascension is a person operating from their own consciousness, their own spirit from within themselves. No one telling them what to do. And so it's all about empowerment from within. So the knowing of where to go and where to be and how to get there and everything, it'll all just transpire.
Wow.
Hey, Henrik.
Hey, it's Henrik from Swedish Peace Project here with George Kavassilas. It's going to be an amazing talk today, George. For those who do not know, Peace Project is a Swedish website, and we are trying to shine a light on a lot of the drama that's going on behind the scenes. And lately, I have come to understand that the drama is playing its part. Somehow in this cosmic dance, and we're actually able to understand the bigger perspective of why we exist and where we're heading and what kind of evolutionary process that we're going through. And we're about to speak about these topics with George, and I must say it's truly an honor to be able to present an interview with you on my website. And it's a privilege to have come to know you, George. You're truly a spiritual brother of mine.
Well, thank you, Henry. Wonderful, kind words, and the feeling is quite mutual, I assure you of that.
First of all, why don't we start off with you telling me a bit about, your experiences that you had from the beginning that led you up to the message that you're bringing forward today.
Well, my experiences started from really the furthest I can remember back was when I was about 5.5, 6 years old. And I have a knowing that things were occurring prior to that as well. So for me, it has been a part of my life, all my life. It's the experiences that I've had with what I consider my galactic family and beings, what we would call extraterrestrial beings that have a more of a negative connotation, what we would call more of a darker sort of aspect to their expression, has been a part of my life from a very young age, as like I said, as far back as I can remember. So it's never not been a part of my life, and there's been periods of time where it got quiet, but then cycles where it got very busy, with a lot of contact, a lot of interactions, and there's been so many, and I've had my memory screened quite often, and that's affected a lot of my recall. There are many, many experiences which I have no access to consciously. Tried regressional hypnotherapy at some stage as well, and I could not be, there was only one person that ever managed to do it. All the others I tried could not put me under. So it's been an interesting journey. I've had contact with both benevolent and malevolent beings, as I stated just a moment ago, and I also mentioned galactic family, and what is that, and to me, galactic family is beings that are familiar to me, just like your brother or your sister or your mother or your father. There's that familiarity when they are in your presence. There's no questioning who it is. There's no wondering who it is. It's a knowing instantly, and a familiarity straight away. And the connection that you have with these beings is on a different level to anything else, because the connection is very deep down inside of yourself. It's very, I would say, substantial. It's very solid.
In 2003, was it, where they prepared you for an individual journey, where you actually got to see, to come to understand and experience life beyond what we can call the false matrix, that most humans believe to be all there is, so to say. Could you tell me about that journey?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I was taken there on a craft which was travelling at an incredible speed. You may have seen in some of the movies that when a craft is in like a warp speed, the reality just streams past, and that's what it was like for me. I was sitting there, I had two people opposite me, and I was sitting on the opposite side, and it was a very small little craft. It was quite small, and the reality was streaming past on this right-hand side of me, and I remember putting my arm into the stream, and I remember the guys, the two gentlemen that were sitting opposite me, friends, shall I say, just having a little bit of a concern as I was putting my arm into it. But I was all of a sudden, it wasn't George anymore. I started having a really wonderful connection with my greater being, and I knew it was going to be all right and safe. And so I put my arm into it, and I was continuing the conversation I was having with them, and I was just playing with this, like, feeling this reality just streaming past, and I pulled my arm back out and continued on with the conversation.
Wow.
And I was really quite excited too, because I was being taken to meet more of the old family, which is what I consider, it's a part of me that has a connection with these beings prior to incarnating here on Earth.
Yeah.
So we're talking about one aspect of my being, and for me, that's I have an aspect in what we call the star system of Sirius, and I also have an aspect of myself in the Pleiades. And this was a Sirian, Pleiadian, Arcturian sort of collective group that I work very closely with. And this is family. This is what we're talking about.
Let me just hold you there for a second, because hopefully a lot of people who are not very aware of what's going on and what's about to happen will listen to this interview and might be a bit confused. So could we just first of all talk a bit about who we truly are, because most people might be very, very confused hearing about this. So if I'd ask you who we are, and if could you explain a bit how, in what way we are more than we think we are?
Yeah, well, we're all incarnated here on this brilliant, wonderful and majestic woman known as planet Earth, who is a living, breathing, thinking, feeling being unto herself. That's a very important concept to begin to understand. So I came to this knowing about life, and we all can ponder life. What's it all about? What are we all doing here? Who am I? Okay, so I have this name, George. My name, George Kavassilas, and that is my current personality. That's what that name is referring to. So it's kind of like, well, how did I get here? Like, where did I come from before I was born? So who's the rest of me? So there's obviously a part of me that made a decision to come and incarnate here and have this experience and be George Kavassilas. Yeah. So there's another part of me. And then once I came to that realization and that knowing, it was wow. That's the big one. Once you cross that line or begin to have that realization and that knowing, it really opens everything up. You really break the hold that what we call the veil has on you, because you're beginning to think big. You're no longer thinking small in a confined reality. Yeah. So you realize, wow, there's another part of me. And the more you start to venture down that path, the more you realize there's not just one other part of me, there's lots of parts of me. And then you start to realize, well, they're really, and you get back to, like, from this part, you go out to lots of parts, and then you realize there's one part which seems to be the, for want of a better term, the controlling, the part of you that controls all these other aspects of yourself. It is the source of your essence and your spirit and your consciousness that has created all these other parts of yourself, including this one. So here I am as George, and deep down inside I have what we call like a spiritual essence, or what we call a soul. Mm. Okay? Yeah. And so that aspect of our being is the part of us that really has instructed us to come here to Earth. And once we start to realise that, then we realise also that, does that mean I'm not really in control of what's going on down here? Mm. There's another part of me that orchestrated this life, that is the composer of this life, that is the conductor of this life. Then you start to realise, then the question of ego comes into it. This ego personality here on this level, how much control over my destiny do I actually have? Do I have any? These are all the issues that one starts to ponder deeply.
Most people on this planet still, as we speak, are not aware of that they are more than they believe to be in their incarnations here on Earth. And there's obviously a manipulation going on. I was thinking we might not talk yet about who's manipulating us, but there's definitely a manipulation going on the planet, making us think that this is all there is. In order for us to not break those boundaries, break those norms, and realize our true potential. So could you talk to me a little bit about, what are the key elements for manipulating us into thinking that this is all there is, and I'm nothing more than a Homo sapien?
Yeah. Oh, the question that just begs asking is why. I can get into the detail of how it is all coming about. Yeah. Putting it just basically that.
I just want people to, who are not very familiar with this, to get an understanding of how all of this is possible, how it's possible for us to be so much more.
Oh, we are. The way our society teaches us, you could say, and informs us about life, and informs us about our reality, this planet, and the solar system and the cosmos. The way it goes about that is from a very, 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 very limited perspective. Now, there are multitudes, millions and millions of people all around the world having personal experiences which are way outside the boundaries of what our cultural societies are saying life is. So first of all, it's important to know that there is a kind of revolution happening all over the world. That it's like this wave of awakening that is taking place and realizations. So it's not just one person here, one person there, and it's just merely just the odd person just scattered around the world. It's happening to multitudes. And there are many people who will probably be watching this feeling, hey, you know, I'm having incredible experiences and I'm perceiving life different to what the education system says life is, different to what even religion says life is. And my experiences, you know, the way I understand what we call love, the way people communicate with one another, we are, you know, you begin to realise that, hang on, you know, the expressions that people have down here are based on greed. A lot of it's based on greed, and a lot of it's based on ego and vanity, and you know, a lot of negative connotations. There is a lot of good things that go on too, because that's been the challenge, to be immersed into a world with a lot of negative connotations to it, but still to manage to be a person of honour and respect and love and integrity. You know, that is the challenge. And then you realise the human spirit, just what it's capable of. And so here we are in these physical bodies, and we have a cultural program that we are born into and we are raised with. And a lot of people think that, you know, what the television and 6 o'clock news says and what the education system says and what religions tell us, and that is basically what life is. Many people saying, no, hang on a moment, that's not all life is. I know deep down inside I'm much, much more than what I'm being told I am. And I realise that life in the universe, in the greater universe, is so grand. The universe is full of life, okay? It's absolutely full of life, and on many different levels of reality, not just this one. And it's important that we begin to see ourselves as much grander and much greater than what we are led to believe, because, you know, it's not just seeing ourselves as that, it's knowing who we are deep down inside and allowing that to come out, and not allowing and not to stop letting this cultural program that we have to create like a bubble, you know, and then you're inside that little paradigm and you cannot escape from that. No, you can, and your awareness allows you to expand your awareness and your state of mind and your state of being. Yeah. And life becomes very different once you do that.
Yeah, it does. A lot of people will not really understand what you're saying when you talk about an awakening around the world, though, and that they might not see it, obviously, because it's like you're saying, they're not going to talk about it on the news tonight. Like Randy George, the musician, says in one of the letters on your website, this information, this knowing, is not going to come to us through our modified psychic reptilian abilities. It's going to come to us through our hearts, through the intimate connection to creation, which it is. And so it's not being expressed by the media. It's not being expressed by Rupert Murdoch or, you know, the Channel 4 in Sweden, but it's being expressed from within our hearts. So let's go back to the journey that you took in, was it 2003, right? Were you?
Yes, it was in 2003, and so here I am, and I'm travelling on this small craft, and I got taken to a much larger craft, and quite a distance away from the Earth, and I don't know the exact distance, but it was closer to the Sirius system, which is my home system, and just getting onto that, I actually, that part of me comes from the star itself, so that's another thing I'd like to discuss, is that I don't actually come from what we see as planets on this level. So the stars that we see out there are actually planets, but on a high level, and because they are of a very high vibration, they emit light, and they look like what we call a star. So that's just another concept. Some people may understand that, and I know but other people won't. But it's understanding that the universe is made up of different levels of reality. And it's like your radio station dial, if I could just explain it. It's like the radio station dial. You have a frequency, and you have a radio station on that frequency, and you have people playing music and talking. And then if you move from that frequency and you shift over to another frequency, a higher frequency, for example, on an FM band, you might go from 104.7 or something, and you might go to 105.5, just to use ones that we have here in Australia. And there you have a whole new reality. They're playing different music, different people talking, but these realities exist side by side. They both exist at the same time, but they're on a different frequency. And that is how the universe is structured. We have different frequencies, so therefore we have different realities.
But George, this sounds crazy. People hear about this on TV and in fiction movies and cartoons. How come we don't know this in science?
Because the world of science is very tightly controlled. There is an agenda here on this planet to keep the human race at a certain level of awareness, a certain level of knowledge, and a certain level of understanding.
Because I just wanted to say that because when a lot of people hear you talk, they refer to the movies that we see coming from Hollywood, you know, about other beings and planets and other realities, other universes. That's what we see in the movies.
Well, the other thing to ask also is when these movies are made, it's like, where do they get the ideas from? You know, people say, oh, it's just imagination. Well, what is imagination? Okay? You know, and what is, it blends in with creativity. And creativity from deep within a being comes from wisdom and knowing and knowledge and the creative side of us, and that's how we create things, we manifest things. So if us here on this planet are capable of creating and manifesting things of this nature, surely there's beings out there in the universe that are. I mean, the concept that we're the only ones that exist in the universe, quite frankly, you know, I hope people don't take this as an insult, but that's insane, really. That's a mark of insanity. And I know it's a bit of a harsh statement, but you've got to really look at what you're saying. If you think, you know, it is honestly someone trying to have the argument with me that the world is flat, and apparently there's some people that still believe the world is flat, and that's okay. They're entitled to do that. But please don't impose your concept of reality on the greater community when it's so limiting, so restricting. I mean, the world is not flat. We all know that. And really, to think that we're the only ones that exist on one level is quite arrogant. To think that this whole universe was created just for one little race on one planet. So it's to grasp the vastness of the universe as well, to understand how big the place is. So when you look out there and you just see a fuzz of white in the sky of stars, imagine how many stars require to make that fuzz. I mean, you know, it's billions and billions of stars make up just our galaxy alone. And then you have billions and billions and billions of galaxies. So to think that we are all alone in this enormous creation is really, you've got to think twice about that. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's not practical.
Absolutely. And I believe that the people that are, when you present this kind of information to people, a lot of them obviously don't want to listen and don't want to believe what you're saying. I think a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are afraid of stepping out of the norm, afraid of starting to believe and become interested in something that most people in today's society do not talk about.
Well, our minds have been programmed by our cultural upbringing, okay? So when people talk about anything that's outside that mind program that they have so far experienced in their lives, it gets uncomfortable. It's no different to if you talk to somebody who's an absolute religious fanatic, okay? Or somebody who's been brainwashed by an occult, for example. If you try to tell them something different than what they actually truly believe or been brainwashed into believing as the whole truth, then you get that reaction. You get it literally creates discomfort, not only in the mind, but creates emotional responses.
Yes.
And that's a clear indicator when people hear information like this, if they're feeling like this guy's insane, he's delusional, that this is all just crazy talk, well, look up at the night sky, look at some of the pictures of the telescopes and begin to realise how big the universe is. And look around you. And you know, many people go through life with what we call the blinkers on, the horse blinkers.
Yes.
It gives you a very narrow view of life, and it's very important for one's own well-being to actually expand your awareness and to consider the vastness of life and the possibilities of everything else that life and the universe has to offer. It's to think that we're the only ones in the universe that is so colossal. It's the magnitude of it is so hard to grasp of how big it is.
But it's easy to understand people when you look at how the manipulation is done to us and how we're being
well,
bred
the
into
world
society.
is under to put it bluntly, okay, what we have here is a global occult. And we have all these paradigms that have been created to create different mindsets within our cultures. And so you have the world of science, for example. While there's wonderful discoveries happening and people breaking new ground, there's also the flip side to that where it's very tightly controlled and is being led down a certain path. So there's a lot of new discoveries that have been happening over the last 100 years that have not been allowed out into the public arena that would have greatly benefited mankind. But because it would have broken mankind free from so many constraints and controls, that wasn't allowed to take place.
Yes, because
like I said, there is that agenda to keep human beings on this planet under a very tightly controlled environment.
And in order to control us, you must make us believe that we are nothing more than what we've been led to believe. Then, in order to control us, you must make us believe that we are nothing more than what we've been led to believe. Then, not to realize there are infinite possibilities.
Exactly. It's all about the herd mindset. You know, it's creating the herd mentality.
And a lot of people's opinions are based on beliefs that they get from something that someone told them.
Not only that, it's handed down through our generations. And so there was many things that my parents handed down to me. And it's also in our DNA and in our genes. And so you've got generation after generation of traditions and belief systems being handed down to us as well. You know, we chose to incarnate into these bloodlines, and so what sort of patterns are we are dealing with in these lives that we're having here? I know the ones that I've had to deal with, you know, have been quite hard-lined, especially to do with religious energies, for example. Because of my name and the bloodline I've incarnated into, and it also gives me an understanding of why I'm here and some of the reasons why I'm here on this planet, anyways, to help break a lot of that mold, that rigid mindset and structure and that dogma that comes along with that, and so it also the influence of our culture around us, and then we have our education systems and our society, and then the way society is portrayed to the masses via the television screens. You know, saying that, you know, now this new model car has come out, and if you want to feel like you're important and somebody special, then you really need to have this car, because if you don't have this car, then you're going to be a bit of a loser.
And when society is
and that's sort of like the subliminal messages that are in the advertising campaigns.
Yes.
And these are all the things that we have to deal with on a very subtle level in our daily lives.
Yes.
So a lot of people get depressed because they have all these very subtle programs that are working on their psyche and their consciousness on a day-to-day basis, and their spirit within is just crying out, but it's being squashed and by layer after layer of all these expectations of what one should be like, how we should be, how we should feel, how we should dress, how we should speak, how we should express ourselves. And an individual's spirit is no longer allowed to just be, to be free, to be itself, to be, creative and caring and loving, and no, one must be ambitious and ego-driven and things like that.
And when we get told that if you buy this car, you'll add something to the self-image that you have, then obviously we will not go further than identifying ourselves with that short-lived entity, not understanding that we are infinite spiritual beings having an experience, learning in a evolutionary process that we will come to a little bit later. But the people, however, who are, like you say, there is an awakening all around the world. The people who are waking up are obviously not waking up from the TV. Well, they're waking up from the TV, but not because of the TV.
I'm sorry, Henry. Can you speak a bit more into the microphone? I can barely hear you.
Sure. What I said was that, like you're saying, there's
better.
Yeah, there's a global awakening around the world, and it's not coming to us from the TV. It's coming from within our hearts, and when we get those experiences, when we experience things ourselves, that is obviously stronger to one than the beliefs that we have had, that's been passed down generations, that comes to us in our society through the educational system and TV, etc. And that is truly amazing. I've been talking to you about some of the experiences that I've had lately in my sleep. Maybe that's something we could mention as well. When you're sleeping and you have a lot of people have conscious dreams. A lot of people are having experiences when they sleep. Are we traveling with our astral body, or what's going on?
Well, on many levels, there is that. People, it's a very common term to have heard astral travel. That's one level of reality, is the astral level, and then above that you have etheric aspects to ourselves. And so, depending on what it is that higher aspect of you wants to achieve during the night, or depending on what part of you will travel. And that's how it is for me, and that's how it is for many people that I know. I don't personally sit there and say, right, I now want to astral travel. Some people do that, but I don't operate that way. If I'm astral traveling, it's George did not make that decision. I didn't make it from this level. So often we'll go to bed at night, and there'll be people who will relate to this that may not understand anything that we're saying here, but will relate to this. You go to bed at night, and you can feel that you've had a very active night, and then you get up in the morning, and you're more tired than when you first went to bed, which doesn't make sense because you're meant to go to bed and relax and regenerate yourself and wake up feeling fresh. But many, many people are experiencing feeling very tired, more tired than what they should when they wake up in the mornings.
Yeah.
And that's because we've had a very busy night going and travelling and doing all this work on all these other levels, helping out.
Yeah, almost every night I'm doing some sort of new mission, trying to fight the New World Order, or, not too many spiritual journeys yet, but yeah, that will come.
Well, we have a lot of work to do on a very practical level too, and that's what people are, discovering as well.
And it's amazing, the more the bigger the understanding of, the more you understand of who you are, the more you experience, and the more you, like you're saying, you make yourself available to access more knowledge, to access your greater being, and it's truly fantastic. Since we're talking about experience, something I want to say in this interview now is an advice for people to experience who they are is simply to meditate. If you sit there and meditate for a while and just let go of your thoughts, then your whole body will melt together with the energy field outside of it, and you will just, you know, get this higher level of consciousness. It's that simple, right?
It really is. The simplest thing to do is just sit down, turn all your televisions, radios, everything off, find a quiet spot, and just allow yourself to be. What some people find when they first do that, I know I did, is your mind just wants to keep going. And the key to all of this is to really be aware of the thoughts that you're having. And that scares some people because all of a sudden they're having all these thoughts and they're, hang on a minute, I don't want to be having these thoughts, so where are they all coming from? Why am I having them? So
you actually
the question
become the
is, who's
silent...
really in control of our minds here? Yeah. Once you become aware of what goes on in your own mind, it's amazing. And people think they're in control of their minds. When they start to investigate and practice this, then they quickly come to realise that, hang on a minute, I'm having thoughts here that I don't want to be having. So where are they coming from? And that's not somebody who's suffering delusions and all that sort of business. It really comes down to the functionality of a person's mind. And people get scared, so they don't want to think about it, they don't want to investigate it, and they don't want to take it any further because they can't shut their minds down. Their mind just wants to keep going. And the concept that they're not in control of their mind is too scary, so they'd rather live in denial of the knowledge of that and sort of live on the concept of ignorance is bliss, and really ignorance is slavery.
All right, let's go back to your own journey then. I just wanted to talk a bit about who we are before we continue, because like I said, hopefully a lot of people who are not very aware of what's going on will listen to this. So yeah, we're talking about you getting back and experiencing your higher self in Sirius and the Pleiades, right?
Yeah, so it's amazing though, you and I, we have so much to discuss, don't we? There's just so much to talk about, and that's why for the folks who are listening to this, we do diverge a bit. That's because there's just so many topics to actually get through.
Yeah.
The journey that I undertook was, I ended up in this very large craft, and it was closer to the Sirius system from where we are, which is about 7.5 light years away from where we are now, a bit more than that. And I was in a room, and it was all very wonderful, family, very comfortable. I was put on a chair which was shaped a little bit like a dentist chair, but it was very plush. It was very luxurious. It wasn't hard and cold. The environment wasn't cold and hard. It was very warm. All the furnishings were very warm and soft and very comfortable. The people were wearing mostly beige and brownish sort of coloured gowns, long flowing gowns, and some of them had streaks in their hair. It was just human-looking people, just like you and I. Just maybe some were a bit taller and some had maybe pointy noses, and that's all, very minor differences. And I was basically being prepared. I wasn't injected with anything, nothing of the sort. And this was organised prior to my incarnation. That was another knowing and understanding that I had. Because the moment you leave the paradigm of Earth, the control systems they have on everyone's minds here is pretty much no longer applicable. There are some residue on it, on your mind, but really you're breaking free from what we call the Matrix. I'm sure people have heard that term and that concept. They even made a movie series called The Matrix, and it is all about the way our minds are controlled. And so I was just being prepared, and I was sitting on that chair, and all of a sudden I came out of my body. And I've astral travelled before, and I've travelled on etheric levels, and that this was different. What they needed to do, they needed to just monitor my body and look after it, because what came out of my body was my consciousness, meaning at the very, very deep core level of my being, came out. That's what we call, you may have heard the term, the I am presence. My model of the universe, okay, in my model of the universe, the soul and the I am presence are the same thing. Other people put the soul much further down in the structure of the universe. I have it right at the top because my soul is my core essence. It's the same as what we call the I am presence. So that's the part of me that came out. And with that part of you, you have the ability, because you're just pure energy, just pure consciousness, you have the ability to go anywhere in the universe. And so what I did was I started going up into the higher dimensions of the universe. And I started realising what life was all about. And as I went up, it's like you take vast galaxies, like a whole, what I would call a dimension of the universe. And as I'm going up, it's just shrinking. And then it became a vortex of light. It was an amazing experience. And then I went up through another dimension and the same thing happened. And I got through a certain amount of levels to what we refer to as we've been in what's called the third dimension here. That's often people have referred to that. Then there's the fourth and the fifth. And then I went to the sixth and the seventh and the eighth and to the ninth. And then I got to see, experience life up there and got to, it's not so much seeing with eyes, because I obviously didn't have a body. So what you're doing is you have this awareness perception of what goes on around you. So what I got to realise, and a knowing, in that state of being, you have like just a knowing of what's going on around you. It's because remember, you don't have the mind, you don't have the brain. So there's that essence, your spirit part, which is connected to all life, and that's where the knowing is, the true knowing. And I was up there on the ninth dimension, and what came next to me was the consciousness of the universe. And I came to discover in that moment, because it's a knowing instantly, no one's proving anything to anybody, it's an instant knowing, was what we call the creator of this universe. And so here we are, and we're exchanging God, right? Knowledge and information and love and appreciation. And I was really saying, hey, I really appreciate the fact that I'm able to be inside this universe and have this experience. And I got to see outside this universe, and got to see into what I call the omniverse. Others call it that too, into more of creation, and realised that everything is living consciousness. So this universe is a living being. This universe was created by a being, and that's what people call God. That's what I came to realise. Wow. And we discussed the issue of worship, and God was saying how ridiculous it is on one level that people give their power away and want to worship things. It's really the true God and beings like the great beings like the Christ and Buddha and all that walk this earth. Really, all it is about respect and understanding. It hasn't got anything to do with worship. It's not about giving anyone's power away. And so we had these sort of discussions, and we discussed the grander aspects of life. And then it was time for me to return. And I also got to realise that there was all these other universes out there, but they were of a different construct to this one. And this universe is based on what we call light. This is a light-based universe. And there's all these other constructs out there which we cannot perceive inside of this one. And also got to realise that all these other universes were all these other beings, and that all those beings had parts of them come inside of this one. So I know that the concepts I'm sharing with you are really, 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 really out there. But this is the knowledge that I've brought back with me from that journey. It's an amazing piece of understanding of what life's all about.
What was it like to see outside of our universe into what you call omniverse?
It was, on one level, it was wonder. On another level, it was confusion, because is like, okay, so here all this time there was this part of me inside this universe that, you know, thinking that all of what I saw from inside this universe was creation, was life, okay? And came to realise that there was so much more. But people have talked about life being infinite. But where's the end? Like, what, you know, because if there was a boundary or an end, what, you know, because you're talking about a boundary or a fence or a wall or a, you know, what's on the other side of that wall?
If something is finite,
there is no end to life. And that's a very difficult concept for people to grasp, that it is truly infinite. What is infinite? There's no end. Where does it begin? Where does it end? There is no beginning. There is no end. It always has been and always will be. And the way our minds are structured to think is that there has to be a beginning and an end. Sure, in the lower realms of this universe, and even this universe itself, had a beginning and an ending. But in the grander scheme of things, of life, what hasn't had its ending yet, I mean, it's, you know, it had a beginning. Where if it chooses to end or not, I don't know when that's going to be. It's life cycles, what we call life cycles.